My name's Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. This is the only channel dedicated to UFC picks and DraftKings lineups run by professional fighters and MMA insiders. Every week, I join Nick Newell, professional fighter, professional model, and ESPN Top 10 guest, along with Dan Kramer, UFC fighter, Bellator fighter, Ultimate Fighter alumni, and Jacob Lyons, a skinny kid from Indiana. And we break down every single fight, the betting odds, the DraftKings picks, and we set you up for success. That fight kind of sucked. It really did. Two giant heavyweights, striking based, did nothing. And before the MMA purists attack me in the comments, talk about how phenomenal Gane's, Cyril's footwork was and how well he used distance, I agree with you. His footwork was phenomenal. He did an amazing job controlling the distance, popping in, popping out. He had a takedown that looked good. He missed a whole bunch after that, but it just wasn't entertaining. It wasn't a fun fight to watch. And that's what we're looking for here. I've managed fighters for 15 years. So I get it. Cyril wants that win bonus. His strategy is working. He's controlling the distance. He's popping in, striking, popping out, moving around. I get it. He won that fight, very clearly won that fight. Clearly was the more technical striker. We knew that going into it, and he proved it. Still wasn't entertaining. So he fought for his win purse. He got his win purse. I get it. He'll get another shot, and we'll see some more excitement out of him in the future. I think they both were afraid of each other's striking. Rozenstruik didn't do much at all. I wouldn't say he was just waiting for the big shot, because I don't think he was waiting for the big shot, but he just didn't engage. And I don't know, maybe it was the speed, the footwork. Maybe he was worried about some of that power. We had a couple flashes. I think Rozenstruik, if he marched forward, I think he could have won that. I think he had more power, but not much happened. So again, don't attack me in the comments saying that how amazing Cyril looked and how technical he was. I get it. I have managed fighters for 15 years. I get it. I've managed plenty of fighters that are unbelievably technical, and that is the game plan. I'm going to use my technique. I'm not here to die. I'm here to get paid. So I get it. Believe me, I get it. I understand it. Good for Cyril. He got that win, his show and his win purse. So I get it. Wasn't the most entertaining headline fight we've seen in a long time, especially not with two giant strike heavyweights. So before I break down some of the other fights in the card, I just want to thank you. I want to thank every single one of you. Our views were really, really good this week. The channel's growing at lightning speed. The interaction is unbelievable. We're getting tons and tons of comments, most of them positive, most of them you guys talking about our picks and sharing your picks with us, and that's exactly what we want. A couple of trolls, that's expected. This is the internet. What are you going to do, right? So I want to highlight a few comments. There were literally thousands. So there was way too many to show all of them on here, but I did want to highlight a few. So we have Galactus. Galactus said, Nick is awesome. Hope to see him in the UFC someday. He is for sure way better than a lot of those guys. So he's talking about Nick Newell, our co-host, our friend, the other gentleman on this show that picks fights. Nick is very good. Nick was 16-0 with 16 first-round stoppages or something absurd like that before he fought Justin Gaethje and lost his undefeated record. So Nick is still an active fighter. He runs a gym. He's got 2 kids, and he's still fighting today. He's on the Bellator roster, and we could not be happier with him being in Bellator. Bellator takes care of us. They are a phenomenal promotion, and you couldn't ask for more out of a partner like Bellator. So I know everybody wants to see everybody in the UFC, but the reality is Bellator is an awesome home for a lot of guys, especially people like Nick who have achieved very high level success and are very good and are still active fighters today. Nick's in Bellator. Nick's doing well in Bellator, and he should be fighting in this summer. So thanks for that shout out. I'm sure Nick appreciates the recognition there as well. The next comment I'm going to show here is from Fuego Mayego. He said, LMAO, stopping the takedowns. Bueno has one of the worst takedown defenses ever. You're not wrong. We saw that. So we thought De La Rosa would implement her wrestling, and she did. So we picked De La Rosa to win for the most part. It was a draw. Obviously, it was a draw because De La Rosa won the first round legitimately. She also got an extra point for the cage grab. So that made that a 10-8 round. And then the second and third round, the judges scored it for Bueno Silva. So those are two 10-9s. You total that up and you have a draw. I disagreed with that decision. I thought Bueno Silva spent the entire fight on her back for the most part. She had some nice flashes of striking, standing, but she spent the majority of the fight on her back. And, I think Bueno Silva didn't do enough to win both of those rounds. So it ended up being a draw. Once we get into some of your DraftKings lineups, I took a look. A lot of you had that fight, and a draw definitely kind of screws your DraftKings because you're missing a 30-point win bonus there. But Fuego, you're right. She doesn't have great takedown defense, and we sort of saw that. De La Rosa's huge and had decent wrestling. Not the best wrestling I've ever seen, but Bueno Silva's takedown defense wasn't there, and she spent the fight in her back, and I thought she lost, but she got lucky enough for a draw. Next up was El Capo. I've got Magomed. That guy is a beast. And then Dutch van der Linde said likewise. Yeah, absolutely. So Magomed was a beast. Now, Krylov was a great underdog. He looked fantastic, especially in that first round. But once Magomed started to turn it on, his striking was a little more crisp. He definitely had some more power. His wrestling was better. His grappling was better. And he was just a little better at everything. So he looked fantastic. I'm looking forward to more of his fights. I think he can be a future champ one day. But he looked excellent. That was a great fight. Krylov was definitely a game underdog, but just not quite there yet. And then the last comment's a long one from our buddy Ishmael. And he had a lot of solid picks here. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but Gane, Ankalaev, Montana De La Rosa, we just talked about that. Munoz, that fight was interesting. Munoz versus Jimmy Rivera was a very interesting fight. Obviously the calf kicks were the only reason Munoz won that fight. I think Jimmy Rivera was the better striker. I think the takedowns he did get were better. He was certainly tough as hell. And just those calf kicks ate him up. I don't know why he didn't change his stance earlier, right? The first round, he already started to feel those issues. He said it to his corner, my leg is killing me. I don't know what to do with it. And then he went out there in the exact same stance. Honestly, the way you stop those calf kicks, two things. One, you move forward. You continue to march forward. You throw bombs. You're busy. You're active. You move forward. And that would prevent Pedro Munoz from planting and throwing that kick. He's not going to plant and throw the kick if he's already backing up. So you have to have that forward pressure to stop him from throwing those kicks. And the second thing is switch your stance. Switch your stance. Go southpaw, right leg forward, and all of a sudden your left calf is behind you and it's not getting beat up. And I totally understand it's uncomfortable. That's not how you fight. That's not how you train. Muscle memory kicks in. And even if he went, in a southpaw stance, his brain would just switch it on him. And he did do it in the third round. But if he did that earlier and if he pushed the pace, that was his fight. So Pedro Munoz won that fight. One of the judges, I think two of the judges had a 30-27, which was crazy to me. I thought Jimmy Rivera still won that first round, even though his leg got a little beat up, because it was only the leg getting beat up. Either way, we said fight of the night, and that was fight of the night. That was a ton of fun. You also, Ishmael also said Hernandez, he's confident in this pick. We disagreed there. We picked Moises as an underdog, and Moises looked fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Moises is known for his grappling, and we know he was a good striker, but his grappling is fantastic. He didn't even need it. His striking looked amazing. He was very comfortable doing whatever he needed to do to control that fight, to dictate the pace. He looked awesome. Great underdog, and that worked out well for us. So thanks for the comments. Again, we appreciate it. All of the feedback, all of the interactions. We love it. This is why we do it. This is a hobby. This is fun for us. We want to share our knowledge and our insight with you so that you can find some success. So let's take a look at the We Want Picks DraftKings Fan League. There's a link in the description below so you can join this league. You can compete in DraftKings, build lineups based off of our advice, or obviously make your own lineups. And eventually we're going to start giving away prizes, giving out gift cards, sending people things. We're just waiting for this group to grow a bit. This DraftKings this week, you guys did pretty well. So we had 15 entries, which is great. And the winner, we have CRO 44872. So if we look at this lineup very quickly, it was a decent lineup. You kind of got screwed on that decision or on that draw because you scored 58 points in a draw. You should add 30 to that because I think De La Rosa won. So that should have been an 88 point fight right there. What was also interesting this week, so you got the Kevin Kroom fight wrong, which is fine. Alex Caceres is not good. The commentators were talking about how great he looked. What an awesome win. That was a terrible win. He looked terrible. I don't understand how anybody could have watched that and said, wow, Alex Caceres looks amazing. What a win streak. He looked awful. Kevin Kroom is really tough and gritty, and we saw he just kept moving forward and working those takedowns, but Alex Caceres did not look good. Anyway, you got that fight wrong, but you still scored a decent amount of points because of all those takedowns. 31 points is a lot of points in a loss like that. And then Alex Hernandez got pieced up by Moises. We picked Moises to win that fight. We thought he looked great. Dan trains an American Top Team still, even though he's retired, and he's only heard great things about how Moises has been looking lately, and obviously he knows Moises from the past as well. But I want to talk about two things here. One, Lawrence looked awesome. That is a ton of points. 134 points in a 3-round fight without a stoppage is fantastic. Angela Hill dropped, and when she dropped, I threw Lawrence in my lineup, and that was huge. He scored way more points than Angela Hill was going to. So that was a fantastic swap. The other thing I want to highlight here is Dustin Jacoby. And there was a few of these fights where a winner only scored 50-something points. I think there was 3 fights where winners only had 50-something points. And you could argue that Dustin Jacoby lost that fight, which I think he did. But regardless, he won the fight and he only scored 54 points. And there was a few other fights on this card like that. And that's really because actually Thiago Moises was a low scorer as well in a win. And that's because there weren't really any takedowns. Takedowns are worth 5 points in DraftKings. So that's why Lawrence, his output was ridiculous. It was takedown after takedown after takedown. And that's where a lot of these points came from. So 5 points for a single takedown is a lot of points. So the Jacoby fight was striking only. The Moises fight was striking only. And those 2 winners only scored 50-something points because of that. So when you draft your lineups, and we've talked about this before, they are starting to favor grapplers. Obviously, you want to chase stoppages when you're doing your lineup. But if you there's not a stoppage that you see prime or ready, you want to look at grapplers because they get 5-point takedowns, and now they get the control time as well. So a grappler takes you down, holds on to you, controls that, throwing those little pepper shots with score. A grappler is going to do much better than a striker who's just piecing you up from the outside. We'll look at BJJ Post Malone. You only lost by less than 1 point. That always stings. You also suffered the draw with De La Rosa. You also had Kroom. You went Jimmy Rivera instead of Munoz. And you also had Jacoby. So the Jimmy Rivera fight is the differentiator for you. That's what kept you out of first place. I honestly, that one, the decision was correct. He lost that fight. But, you could have argued it could have gone the other way. You really could have argued it because he marched forward. He threw heavy leather, and we talked about it at length, how he should have stopped those leg kicks. But it was an exciting fight. And then we'll go to B. Burris. B. Burris was in my other league as well, and he had a 6-0 perfect lineup. So he did not use that lineup here because he would have won this league. He had a solid lineup. And if we look, he only has 1 loser. He only has 1 loss in Grishin. If we go to the winner had 2 losses and a decision. B. Burris had 1 loss, decision, draw. B. Burris had 1 loss and a draw. And the difference is the winners. So Dustin Jacoby, 54 points. Munoz, 67 points. And then Caceres, 75 points. Grishin, 51 points. These are not big winners. And that's why you chase stoppages. And that's why you look for grapplers when you can get grapplers. Grishin, he lost that fight but he scored 51 points in a loss. Jacoby, 54 points in the win. So he doubled up that fight, which is a mistake. But he only scored 3 more points in the win because it's striking heavy. And obviously those stats show that Grishin did win that fight. But anyway, thanks for joining the league. Thanks for competing in this. Like I said, a few more weeks, we'll start to throw out some gift cards and some incentives and things like that. The link is in the description below for how to join this and how to compete. If you've never done DraftKings before and you're interested in it, I'll tell you right now, it is fun and it makes mediocre fight cards very exciting because now you've done research, you've watched our videos, and now you're rooting for fighters that you never cared about before because they're in your lineup. So click the link, join the league, compete. It's free. It's 100% free. We don't even get anything out of it. But we'll start to give gift cards and we'll start to take care of people that consistently join and do well. So all in all, a really fun night of fights. The main event sucked. We talked about that earlier, but a fun night of fights regardless. The other fights were very exciting, super close, and we love those really close razor-thin fights because that's where we shine. That's where the We Want Picks team, me, Dan, Nick, Jacob, that's where we shine. It's easy to look at a giant favorite and say, oh, that person's going to win. The difference is when we say Alexis Davis is going to win, when Thiago Moises is going to win, because those small nuances, those small differences, that's sort of where that, professional fighting background adds a little bit of an edge. And we had a great week, a lot of success in our picks. Thank you for the watch. Thank you for the subscribe. Comment down below if there's more things you want to see or hear from us, or there's things that you'd like us to do different. We're growing like crazy. We're doing really well in our picks, but we've only been doing this about a month. So if there's anything you want to add, anything else you want to see, let us know. Thank you for the watch, and we will see you in a few days with our breakdown of UFC 259. Before you go, check out the description below. In there, we have links to our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram, and more importantly, to our DraftKings League. Check out the league, join the league, participate in the contests, and as we get going and as you start winning, we're going to start handing out gift cards and participating and doing things like that. So check those out. Every week, there are drops on every fight card. So make sure you check out this channel and our social media on Saturday before the fights start so that you have our most updated lineups and picks.